Hi everyone, myself Dr. M. Lakshmi Prasad, working as an associate professor in the Department of Data Science in Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. So in this video, I'm going to discuss about data management and representation. So in this one, I'm going to discuss about the principles of data management. So before going to see that, what is data, we'll see now. So data is nothing but a plural word according to the grammatical point of view, and datum is the singular word. So actually what is the data means? So dictionary defines a data as facts and figures from which the conclusions may be drawn. So a collective recordings of observations, either numerical or otherwise, is called a data. So what is the tool that is available to convert the data into information? So we're having the statistical tool here. So before going to do that, so some questions may arise that, so that may be, where does the data come from and how is it gathered and how do we ensure it's accurate, and then is the data reliable, is it representative of the population from which it was drawn. So these are the questions that may arise when we are going to gather data that should be going to convert into information. And then so once we know that about the data, then how we're going to collect the data. So what are the various forms of the data, then how we're going to collect it, and then what are the various sources that are available to gather the data. So here is the some of the methods for collecting the data. So first one is that direct observation, and then experiments, and then surveys. So these are the common methods for collecting the data. And some other general methods that are available for collecting the data is mailing, telephone, and then face-to-face interviews. So mailing is nothing but mailing the paper questionnaires to the respondents, so who fill them out and mail them back. So having the interviewers can call to the respondents on the telephone and ask them the question in a telephone interview. And then another one is face-to-face interviews is nothing but the sending the interviewers to the respondent's home or office to the administrator and answer the questions what he is asking. So depending on the nature of the data, so the variables and the data is going to be classified into two categories. So first one is qualitative data and second one is quantitative data. So again, this quantitative will be data will be of two types. First one is discrete and second one is continuous. So what is qualitative data? So the data which is going to be characterized by words is nothing but a qualitative data. So when the data is collected on the basis of attributes or qualities like sex and mallocations, cavity, etc. So these are all the data that comes under qualitative data. And then quantitative data, so this is the data that is going to be characterized by numbers. So when the data is going to be collected through measurement like arcs, lengths, fluoride concentration, etc., like that. So these are some of the examples of the qualitative data. So just now I said this data will be of two types. So first one is discrete data and second one is continuous data. So what is nothing but discrete data? So when the variable which is undergone the observation takes place only on fixed values like whole numbers, so that should be the discrete data. And then what should be the continuous data? Suppose if the variable can take any value in the given range, right, or it may be a decimal or fraction, so that may be continuous data. So here we'll see some example here. By seeing the picture, we can able to how we're going to gather the data and what type of data we're going to collect it. That would be quantitative data and qualitative data. So if I'm going to take here, there may be 5 members of children are available, and the all are happy in mode. All are kids here. So when I'm going to consider the quantitative data, the how many numbers will be the qualitative data, and then breadth and generalizability. So these are all the factors that comes under the quantitative data. And similarly, when it comes to qualitative data, then words, depth, and then specific. So these are the words that comes under qualitative data. So next one, we'll see what are the differences between the quantitative data methods and then qualitative data methods. So when it comes to quantitative data methods, so these methods will be surveys, questionnaires, tests, and then existing databases. And similarly, when it comes to qualitative database, qualitative methods, the methods will be focus groups and unstructured interviews and then unstructured observations. So these are the some of the methods that are makes the difference between the quantitative data as well as the quantitative data. So, what are the some other common data collection methods that may be available for collecting the data? So, the first one is surveys, and then case study is the another method, and then conducting interviews and seeing the observation. We can able to collect the data, and from making the group assessment, and then expert or peer reviews, and then portfolio reviews, and then testimonials, and then tests, and then photographs, videotapes, and then slides. So by seeing this also, from the image also, you can able to collect the data, and then diaries, and then journals, logs, and then document reviews and analysis. So these are some of the common data collection methods that are available to collect the data from various sources. So whatever the data we're collecting, so the question may arise. So is the data is reliable and valid? So what is validity and what is reliability? So validity is nothing but, so are you measuring what you think you are measuring? So this is the question. So are you measuring what you think you are measuring? So that should be the validity. And then reliability means if something was measured again using the same instrument, so would it produce the same results? That should be the reliability. So if something was measured again using the same instrument and would it produce the same results? That should be the reliability. And the next one, so the main sources of the data will be surveys, experiments, and then records in OPD, and some other data that is going to be collected, that may be either through primary source and then secondary source. These are the two sources that are available where you can able to collect the data. So what is the primary source here? So primary source means, so here the data is going to be obtained by invigilator himself. So whatever the data is collecting, so the invigilator is there, right? So that invigilator is going to be collecting the data is nothing but the data from the primary source, and this should be the first hand information. And then when it comes to advantages, that the advantage of primary source will be precise information and reliable, and then disadvantage should be time consuming process, and then it should be very expensive one. So the primary data can be obtained through direct personal interviews, and then oral health examination, and then questionnaire method. So these are the primary data, so data collecting from the primary source. Similarly, what is the secondary source? So the data which is going to be collected or recorded, that is to be utilized to serve the purpose of objectives of the study. So that should be, you can able to call it as the secondary source. So example is that records of OPD of the dental clinic. So this is one of the example of the secondary source. So the data which is going to be collected and utilized, and this is to be utilized to serve the purpose of the objectives of the study. And then what are the data gathering techniques that are available? So first one is observation and then questioning. So these are the two methods that are available to gather the data. And then data domains. So data domains in the sense, here there should be three types of domains are available. So first one is paper and pencil, that should be comes under cognitive domain, and then interview is nothing but which should conducting the interview, that should be comes under affective data domain, and observation is the other one, so which is comes under psychomotor domain. How I'm going to create the code book here? So this is one of the topic in data management and representation. So, what are the major elements that are available in codebook for creating purpose? So, the major elements will be variable names and then type of variable. So, whether it is numeric or it may be a string, and then missing values. So, for that missing values, what are the different levels of measurement, and then nominal values, and then how are going to identify the ordinal missing values, and then interval missing values, and the ratio missing values. And some other elements of the code book will be dichotomy and then codes. So these are the various elements so that are needed for implementing a code book. So let's see one by one. So very first one is that variable names. So what are the rules that we are going to be follow for creating a variable names in SPSS? So SPSS is nothing but software package statistical package for social sciences, or it may be going to be called as statistical software. So the variable names must include letters and then numbers, but they must begin with a letter. So this is the rule we have to be follow for creating a variable name. So next rule what we are going to follow is, so the variable name should not use the symbols like division, plus and then minus in the variable names. So already you know that we are going to follow some rules for creating the variables in programming language, right? So the variable name should not be start with dollar symbol, and then the variable name should not be start with special symbols like that, right? So in similar fashion also we can able to follow the same rules for creating the variable names here in codebook while creating the codebook here. And then similarly there should not be any spaces in between the variable names. So these are the rules we have to be follow while creating the variable names in SPSS for creating the codebook here. And the next one is that second one is the types of variables here. So what types of variables that are available here for creating the code book normally? So the numeric variables may contain numbers only, and letters are not going to be allowed here for creating the code book. And then suppose if I want to create the string variables, so the string variables must contain letters and numbers. And then SPSS, so normally it could able to prefer the numeric variables whenever possible. So except in the cases of infinite possibilities like names, and then converting the string variables into the numerical variables. And next element that is present in code book will be nominal. So levels of measurement, so it comes in levels of measurement here. So what is the nominal value here? So this value serves mainly as a label or maybe a name. So when we are going to attach a numeric values to the nominal values, then we are going to use this numbers as symbols here. So this is the nominal variable values. And similarly, the what are the other levels of measurement will be ordinal and then rank order. And then each category of these levels of measurement should have unique position relative to the other categories. So that may be one may be higher or lower or larger or smaller. So the levels of measurement shall also be applicable for a continuous level of data also. So this continuous level of data will be of two types. Very first one is interval level measurement. So some of the examples of simple interval level measurement will be the distance of categories that are going to be defined in terms of fixed and equal units. Like example thermometer. And similarly some other the study differences, but not be proportionate magnitudes. And then some of the mathematical functions. So this and all will come examples of interval level measurement. And similarly the second one is that ratio level measurement here. So here all this ratio level measurement has the properties of interval scale, but 0 point is inherently defined here. So some of the examples of interratio scale level measurements will be height and then weight and then distance. So these are the examples of ratio level measurement. And the ratio comparisons can also be made, and then any mathematical manipulations appropriate for real numbers can also be applied to the ratio level measurements. And the next level of measurement will be dichotoms. So dichotomy is also a variable with only two possible categories or variables like sex, whether it may be male or female, and then true or false, or it may be yes or no. And then these dichotomies can also be treated as a nominal variable, or it may be treated as an ordinal variable, or it may be treated as a continuous variable also, depending on the situation. And then next one is that missing values here. So definitely when you're going to gather the data, definitely some values may be missed, right? So the missing values may be null value or duplicate value or some other value instead of original value. So then what are the different types of missing values we can able to identify while gathering the data here? So the missing values designate either missing information, or it may indicate that particular question was not answered for a particular case, right? So there are two types of missing values here. So very first one is system missing. So that means when a column is left blank, and then coded missing values, so where a particular code is designated to indicate a missing value. And then next one is that codes. Codes is also very important while creating the code book. So while creating the codes, we have to follow this statistical software or statistical package for social sciences. So this SPSS mainly prefers the numerical variables wherever possible. So except in the cases with infinite possibilities, like names, and then converting the string variables to the numerical variables. So when the items record coding, and then assign numbers instead of letters to the responses, and then the numbers can simply find both the data entry and analysis also. So this course is better to code more than the information than the less. So it is often difficult to go back and then gather the additional information again. And this course can record information in as much detail as possible. So these are the instructions you have to be follow for creating the course while creating the code book. And this is the simple view of the code book here. So this code book is going to be arranged in a table form, or I can able to arrange in some other fashion also. So if you look at this table of simple code book here, so what are the fields here? Variable, and then what is the SPSS variable name, and then type, and the levels of measurement, and what are the missing values, and what type of coding it is. Suppose if I consider a variable here, so ID number have to be considered of the variable, and what is the name of the variable, sex, age, and then year of school. So for the simple application like this, we can able to create the code book. And then similarly the SPSS variable name should also be going to be represented in some other. Suppose if it is ID number, I am going to represent it as ID and O, and similar name should be same, sex, age, and then year school. And then what type of variable it is, so whether it is a numeric or it may be a string. So in while creating the code book, all the time we have to be follow two types of variables. So first one is numeric variables, and second one is string variables. And then levels of measurement. So in previous I discussed different levels of measurement, like nominal, ordinal, ratio scale, right, dichotomy, like that. So this what type of variable it is, and then what type of missing value I'm getting here, that one also have to be identified. And then what type of coding, whether it is self coding or it may be manually done, what it is. So what I like that I can able to create the code book by using the elements of the code book. And this is another way of presenting a sample code book. So not only in the form of table, but I can able to also create it in different fashions also. So ID number, age, gender, race, and degree of program, year of study, and then do you live in campus, favorite color, are you color blind, do you smoke, and do you sports at least 1 week, like this. So like this also I can able to create the sample code book. In this video, I'm going to discuss about data cleaning and screening. So what is data cleaning and what is data screening here? So what is the importance of data cleaning here? So when you are going to clean the data of a research process, so the data cleaning and then screening is very important step. So since this is the step which directly follows the data entry, and you must not start off your analysis unless doing it, right? So that's why, so whatever the data is collected by the researcher, so the data cleaning and screening is very important. So what is the importance of data screening here? So it is very easy to make mistakes when entering the data. So whatever the data we're collecting, so the data should be clean, so there should not be any redundant and then null values assigned data like that. And some errors can also mess up your analysis. Some errors also come, and then it is important to spend the time for checking and then for the mistakes initially. So for that, rather than trying to repair the damage later, so try another person to check your data. So this is also very important in order to correct the data performing data screening process. So, what are the steps of data screening? So, before implementing this data screening, so had to be followed two steps. So, first one is that check out the abnormal data. That means that the data within out of range from frequency is stable. And similarly, another step is that go back to the original questionnaire and correcting them. So before implementing, so once the data is collected, so data screening is to be followed by two steps. So first one is check out the abnormal data, find out the insufficient data or missing data. We have to find out. For that, what we have to do initially, we have to perform the frequency table have to be applied, and then otherwise I can able to go back to the original questionnaire and then correcting them. So these are the two ways where the data screening steps may be applied. And some the data cleaning will be includes missing data and then nominal data, linearity, outliers, and multi-collinearity and homoscedasticity. So these are the various factors that are available in data cleaning. So let's see one by one here. Suppose if the missing data come from the data entry, suppose, so how are we going to avoid that? For that, what we have to do, we can able to detect it from the frequencies of the variable. So how many number of times that variable is appearing. Suppose if the variables is same, and how are we going to identify the missing data? So for that, what we have to do, first we have to identify the frequencies. Then we have to sort the data based on ascending order and then descending order, and then you got the IDs of the missing values. So once we get the ID values, then go back and try to fill that, and then run our descriptive analysis again. So these are the steps what have to be followed for suppose if the data is coming from the data entry. And the second one is that suppose if the data comes from the respondent errors, what will happen? So the respondent may be in ambiguous state, or the respondent forget to answer the question. So at that time, what you have to do? So these are the two ways to collect the missing data, right? So once the missing data is, suppose when the missing data is more than 10% of the total values of the variable, then that is the case, we have to be considered as the missing data. Then we should not treat that one as the missing data. And then suppose if the missing values are less than 10%, what we have to do? So we can able to deal with substitute it with a neutral value or substitute it with an imputed value. Suppose if the data is missing value is less than 10%, at that time simply you can able to do these two steps. So first we have to substitute it in neutral value, and then next we have to substitute it with a imputed value. So what is an imputed value? So what is imputation? So imputation is one type of method where you can able to eliminate that missing data. So this imputation can be done in two ways. So first one is that done the imputation using known replacement value, like K substitute on the hot and cold deck imputation. So like a most similar case or best known value, that is nothing but hot and cold deck imputation. So similarly, second way is that imputation is to be done by calculating the replacement values. So replace with mean substitution and then regression imputation. So predicting equation of the valid data. So like this, we can able to identify the missing data, and then how we're going to eliminate that missing data. And then next one is that normality. So what is normality means? So the shape of the data distribution for an individual metric variable. Suppose the normality is used to describe a symmetrical or bell-shaped curve which has the greatest frequencies of scores in the middle with the smaller frequencies towards the extremes. So that kind of data is going to be used for the normality. So it is a must for any parametric analysis, and the normal distribution can be negligible if the sample size is more than 50 respondents. And the next one is that, so what are the measures of that normality? So here we're going to have two types of measures like curtius and then skewness. So the curtius is one of the method, so which can able to apply it for the normal distribution, and then this in normal distribution the curtius value should be 0 and then allowed up to 10 plus or minus 10. And then skewness, so skewness is nothing but the balance of the distribution, and then the positive distribution you can able to call it a left skewed, and negative distribution you can able to call it as the right skewed. So in normal distribution the skewness value should be 0 here. So these are the two measures that we are going to be follow for normality. And the next one is linearity. So it is a multivariant technique, so that should be based on correlation measures of association, so including multiple regression, and then the relation between the two variables should be linear here. So in linearity you should not transform your data to avoid non-normal distribution if a sample is more than 50%, and then but we should transform the data to avoid Kearney linearity. So these the things you have to be followed while performing linearity. And next one is that outliers. Uh, these are the case scores that are extreme and therefore have much higher impact on the outcome of the statistical analysis. And then this outlier is not an error in our data, but it makes our data not representative of its population. And then these outliers can be detected by using the box plots only. So box plots is also one type of graphs where you can able to represent the outliers. So normally the outliers is the data that may be arise out of the border. So then the outlier is also a part of population. So when you wanted, but in the distribution it is seen as an extreme case here. So in this outliers, so we have three choices here. So first one is that delete that extreme cases is the one of the case, and then change the outlier scores so that they are still extreme but they fit within the normal distribution or not. Suppose for example, so make it a unit larger or smaller than the last case that fits into the distribution here. Suppose if the outliers seem to be part of an overall non-normal distribution, then a transformation which can be done, but first checks for the normality. So these outliers can be should be retained to ensure the generalizability of the population, unless they are not representative of the population. So again, what you have to do? So again, you should not transform your data to avoid non-normal distribution if the sampling is more than 50. But what you have to do? We should do transformation the data to avoid outliers. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.